So as you can see, I just cleared out this shelf. So the first two shelves are books that I never filmed a book haul for, and they've been here for like over a year. So I'm just emptying them out and then figuring out where they belong, like what kind of category, what kind of author, and like trying to sort them out. Some books I'm gonna shelve them on my Goodreads account so that I know what I have. I don't want to like mix up books that I already have shelved and books I haven't had shelved. So, and from these stacks I'm going to figure out which books I want to bring to my cottage as well. And yeah, I think I'm gonna put my notebooks there now because I'm taking two shelves that are a part of my closet into the cottage. So now I have no room for my notebooks, and the closet is really dusty and it gets dusty really quick, and I don't want to just lay down like 50 notebooks in there. So I think since I'm going to be taking some books with me, I'll have some room that I could use here, and then for the rest of the books I'll probably just make piles on the floor like I normally do. So yeah, I'm just switching things around, and let's get to action. Okay guys, I changed my mind so many times. Like, first I had put my journals, my long journals that I have not used yet, and then I figured I'd put my Harry Potter, the graphic edition, the illustrated editions, because they're so big and they don't fit on any other shelf, and then also like my dictionaries and my school books that I'm keeping. So I think this is a better alternative. And now I was thinking that at the top here I might just put like my writing books instead, so that I can have it easily accessible here instead of the other room. But I have a lot of writing books, so I don't know if that's a good idea right now. And then I also have like other books up here, mostly my Jane Austen collection, so I'd have to see where I would put it. So lots of like figuring things out. Like I have no idea what's gonna fit where, and I hate when things don't fit. I was thinking also to put my journal, like my used and unused journals, at the top of my shelf in my bedroom. That could be an option as well. Oh my god, this is so close. So we'll see what I end up doing, but stick around. Hi, hello. So I wanted to show and share with you guys all the books that I finally decided to bring to the cottage. So as you can see, those two brown shelves are stacked on top of each other, and that's where I'm going to put all the books. I don't think I have more than like 30 books, so I'm just going to go through them quickly. I'm just going to show them, and then I'm going to place them, and yeah, that's going to be the books for the cottage. So a lot of them are very thematic, a lot of them are very much foresty, cottage, survival books. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first thing we got here is this set of Jane Austen books. I love these covers, and yeah, I just want to reread some of the books that I've read by her already, and I want to read the other books that I haven't read. So we have Emma. I obviously read and loved Emma. We have Sense and Sensibility. I have never read Sense and Sensibility, so that's one that I want to read in the coming year. Then we have Pride and Prejudice. Obviously, I've read this many times. Northanger Abbey. I've also read this many times. Then I have Persuasion. I've never read Persuasion. And I have Mansfield Park, which I've also never read. So I'm going to put these here, and I'm going to stack up more books. I got this beautiful notebook that I never use. It says here, either write something worth reading or do something worth writing. Benjamin Franklin. I might put this on the windowsill that I have here, or I'm going to put it at the top of the bookshelf. I don't know yet. Then I have Walden by Henry David Thoreau, which is really suited for the cottage life, because for those of you who don't know, Thoreau went to live into the woods to write, and yeah, he was just living his cottagecore life basically. And I've read half of this, and I just have to finish the other half in the next year or so. I just picked it up, but I felt like it wasn't time. But obviously now it's time to read this in the woods. I'll go outside into the woods and read this now. I've got 3 more notebooks here. So I have Wine is Bottled Poetry by Robert Louis Stevenson, and it's just like a notebook that has like wine pictures and design, and I never use this because it's so pretty, so I think I just want to have this on display. And similarly, from the same kind of brand, I got this one, which is a cat theme one. Sorry, I didn't show this up close. And this one says here, There Are No Ordinary Cats by Colette. And I love Colette. She was a French author. And again, just like these little cute designs. So, and then I also got this one, and obviously it's just perfect for the woods and the cottage. And I think this is just, yeah, it's just blank paper. If I ever feel like sketching or drawing or taking down notes about plants, I'll probably do it in this journal. So when I'm here, I'd love to write more nature poetry. So I obviously picked up a poetry handbook by Mary Oliver. And Mary Oliver was really good at writing and capturing nature in her poetry. So I thought, why not learn from the master herself? And I also got this little book by Harold Bloom, and it's called The Art of Reading Poetry. I just thought it would be really fitting to have 2 types of writing books here, because I normally have all my writing books in one place at my other house. So yeah, I just want to have these 2 so I can feel more inspired to write poetry whenever I'm here. I also grabbed this copy of Emma by Jane Austen, and it's just like this old hardcover, and I just felt like having it here. I don't know why, just because of the way it looks. And I really do love Emma. I think I almost love it a little bit more than Pride and Prejudice at this point. Then I got The Demon and the Angel, Searching for the Source of Artistic Inspiration by Edward Hirsch. So yeah, just another book about writing. I just saw this book on one of my stacks at home, and on an impulse, something told me to take this one with me, so I did. I also got this autobiography of Louisa May Alcott, and it's called A Hopeful Heart. And I really love Louisa May Alcott, and every time I think of her, I think of like cottage living and living in the woods and, you know, living like a slow life and being a writer and trying to sustain yourself as a writer. So I thought it was fitting, and I really do want to read this. Then I got a more sciencey book. It's called Improbable Destinies, Fate, Chance, and the Future of Evolution by Jonathan B. Losos. I just love the cover. It's so stunning. And yeah, I saw it. I thought, why not bring this to the cottage? I somehow found a rose petal from a dried rose. So that's cute. I might just keep it because I just love roses. Oh my god, I got this book and it's called Roughing It in the Bush by Susanna Moody. I remember when I took this Canadian literature class and we were talking a lot about like Canadian authors and Canadian wilderness. This book was brought up a lot, and it's set in the woods of Upper Canada, and I'm in the woods of Upper Canada, so perfect book to have here. And I just could picture myself one cold evening in wintertime just binge reading this and, you know, getting lost into the wilderness. So another thematic that I went for over here is bringing books that are from the Romantics era, so the Romantic poets and the Romantic writers like Byron. So I'll show that whenever I get to those books, but I have two of them here. So I have Letters of John Keats, and I also have the works of Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I actually really love Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I don't talk about her enough, so I'm so happy to have found this like really old edition of, you know, her poetry. And you just can see how old this copy is, and I just can't wait to read it, although I feel like the font is gonna cause chaos for my eyes, but that's okay. I am so dedicated to reading more of the Romantics, and what better place to do that than in a cottage. We've reached the part where I show some survival books, and some of them are really funny and others are just, you know, regular books. So we have the Zombie Survival Guide, and this is by the author that wrote World War Z, which is a zombie book that was after filmed and adapted into a movie with, I think, was it Brad Pitt or Matt Damon? I think it was Brad Pitt. I'll leave the trailer of that movie down below. So yeah, this is by him. And it just seems so fascinating and interesting, and I think these are like actual practical real life like tips for survival, so why not? Also, going back to my Canadian literature class, we had a lot to do with survival and living in the woods and living in Canada, and one thing that came up a lot was Margaret Atwood and this book that she wrote, Survival, A Thematic Guide to Canadian Literature. So it was really hard to get a copy of this book, but I did get one last year, and yeah, I'm just so excited. I had an idea a few months ago about a survival book that I want to write, obviously fiction, so that's why I'm bringing the research of that book to this cottage, because I just want to be in the mood of it. I am kind of afraid sometimes to go outside because I don't know what lies in the forest, so I think like this is just gonna add to that, you know, layer of my novel. So obviously I had to bring my edible and medicinal plants of Canada. I love this. This is gonna be my best friend. More woodsy books. First we have A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. Then we have Greenwood by Michael Christie. We also have Islands of Abandonment by Cal Flynn, and I'm like halfway through this book, and this book was amazing, so I can't wait to pick this up again, finish it. And it's another book about like survival and how nature reclaims its course, although we as humans have, you know, caused a lot of natural and unnatural disasters upon our planet. So it's just a very crazy book to read. So it's nature rebounding in the post-human landscape. That's what the book is about, and it's so fascinating. And some more similar books, we have My Abandonment by Peter Rock, and this is based on a true story of how a father was raising his daughter at the nature preserve in Portland, Oregon. And so just again, all about survival, hope, and grief as well, I believe. So I know that they made a movie out of this called Leave No Trace, so I am really excited to read this. And yeah, Once more towards the post-apocalyptic side, we have The World Without Us by Alan Wiseman. We have also Bushcraft 101 by Dave Canterbury. And again, this is about survival and bushcraft. We have this book, which is The Way Through the Woods on Mushroom and Morning by Long Lit Woon. I just love the way this book looks, and there's some like cute mushroom designs. I am really fascinated by fungi and mushroom and plants in general. It's just something that I'm slowly getting into as I appreciate nature more and more as I grow older. So going back to the romantics, like I was talking about, we have the selected poems of Lord Byron. Look how huge this is. It's crazy. And then we also have the complete poems of John Keats. I just absolutely love these Penguin Classic editions, and I love this cover specifically. So obsessed with this. Oh, so speaking of World War Z, I actually brought the book. I had started it back in a few months ago, but then I stopped, so I have to pick it up again and start it from the beginning. Story of my life. I've done that with like multiple books this year. Same thing with this book. I started it, but then I stopped, and it's called The Bear by Andrew Krivak. It's about a father and daughter living in the north in the woods in the cabin, and they're like the only two people living there. And it's also a grief story, as he is always celebrating every year the passing of his wife, who I believe passed during the labor of their child. So yeah, he's just raising this little girl by himself, and he's raising her from like, you know, childhood to adulthood as well. I don't know what this book is about, but it is a Canadian author, and he has written more than one book about wilderness. So it says here, Alone Against the North, an expedition into the unknown by Adam Schultz. The Toronto Star said, Schultz is Canada's Indiana Jones, portaging in the north, dodging scary rapids, plunging into darkness, and surviving to tell the tale. I find it even more fascinating when it's someone that has experience being in the wilderness, in the wood, and surviving, you know, whatever nature has brought them, and then living to tell the tale. I find that even more interesting to read and more compelling to read, because they know what they're talking about. They've been it, they've seen it, they've witnessed it with their own eyes. So I would definitely want to read more accounts like this. Let's move this aside somewhere. So then we got the poetry of Robert Browning, which is Elizabeth Barrett Browning's husband. Such an old copy. I found this at the thrift store, and I just love the way this looks. It's so cool. I have this book, which is blurbed by Margaret Atwood. It says here, The Wolf, A True Story of Survival and Obsession in the West by Nate Blakesley. I just love this cover. And we have wolves here, so I just feel like this is so on brand right now. And speaking about fungi and my obsession with fungi and plants, I had started reading this earlier this year. It's called Entangled Life, How Fungi Make Our Worlds, Change Our Minds, and Shape Our Futures by Merlin Sheldrake. I highly recommend reading this book. It's just such a fascinating book, and the author's writing style is just so compelling. I found two other poetry related books. The first book is The Hatred of Poetry by Ben Lerner. And then I also have Serious Concerns by Wendy Cope. And if this reminds you of something, it's because of that orange poem by Wendy Cope. I think it's called The Orange. And I'm sure you've heard it before. If not, you've heard a sound of it. But yeah, such a good poem. I also have this collection of Emerson's essays. I have this book that I'm halfway through that I started at the beginning of the year as well, and I'm loving, and it's again about forests. It's called Finding the Mother Tree, Discovering the Wisdom of the Forest by Suzanne Simmer. And this one is also set in Canada, so just such a lovely book. I love when authors can weave in like the science, the nature portion with their own personal experiences, and kind of like drawing this line between the, you know, personal and the impersonal, between autobiography and the universal. Obviously, I had to bring my SAS Survival Handbook Guide by John Lofty Wiseman. And this version is illustrated as well. I have The Revenant by Michael Punk. I've never read this, but it's also set in the Rocky Mountains, and there is an adaptation, a movie adaptation with another famous actor that I don't remember. I have The Overstory by Richard Powers, and I think this is like a long family saga, so I just am obsessed with the cover, and I only heard good reviews when this book came out, so yeah. I have this book called Creatures, which is a novel by Chrissy Van Meter, and it's just because of the nature aspect of this book that I brought it, because I felt like anything that had any kind of nature aspect on the cover belonged to the cottage. And the same thing with this one, which is called West, a novel by Carrie Davies. This is a really short book, by the way. And since I brought most of my Jane Austen books, I thought why not bring these two as well. So the first book I have is Sanditon by Jane Austen and Kate Riordan. Never read this, never even heard of it. And so when I saw this, I'm like, okay, let me read this and see what it's about, because apparently it's Jane Austen's unfinished novel. And I also brought this book, and it's called Jane Austen in Context, and this is like the Cambridge edition. And I've read a lot of these essays and a lot of these contextual information while I took a Jane Austen class in my university days. So love this book. I love learning more about the context of Jane Austen, the author, and also her works, and you know, the society she was living in Bath. So this is just such a fascinating read, and I definitely want to pick it up again once I work through her other novels that I haven't read. And then finally I have these last few books, and these books were for 2 separate reading vlogs that I wanted to film this year, but I didn't get a chance to. So I might film those reading vlogs whenever I get a chance, when I'm here, when I have time for more readings and more sit down videos. So I'll just go through the books, and then I'll tell you who were the celebrities that recommended these books. First we have Franny and Zoe by J.D. Salinger. I love J.D. Salinger, and this book was recommended by Pedro Pascal. Then we have 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and this again was recommended by Pedro Pascal. And I've read this before, but it's a high time for me to reread this, because the last time I read this book I was in high school. I think like I've matured and I learned so much more about literature and, you know, analogies since then, so I think this is a perfect time to pick this up. And then the next celebrity is Maddie Healy from the 1975 band, because I love that band and I've seen them multiple times, so I just wanted to film a video and go and see them. But I didn't end up seeing them this year, because actually the day that they performed this year was the day that I moved into the cottage, so I had to miss the concert. But I do have these books that I want to read because he recommended these. So first we have Slouching Towards Bethlehem by Joan Didion, and this is like an essay collection. Then we have 2 books in French. We have La Société du Spectacle by Guy Debord, and this is just about theater, which is very on brand for Maddie Healy. And then we have Rimbaud, Poésie, Une Saison en Enfer, and this is again, it's poetry by Rimbaud, and Rimbaud was like this young, tormented, gay poet, and I do believe he met like a really tragic end at the end. But yeah, I've read some Rimbaud before, but I haven't actually read that much Rimbaud. We also have Open Ground, which is again selected poems of 1966 to 1996 by Seamus Heaney. I think that's how you say his name. Yeah, this was a Northern Ireland poet. And then finally, last book that he recommended, and the last book of this whole getup, is Queer by William S. Burroughs. And I read another William S. Burroughs book last year, and it was called, I forgot, but I read it. It was good. I really enjoyed it, and I really wanted to pick up more books by William S. Burroughs. And yeah, I really want to read this one because it's about, I think it says here, queer is an unflinching autobiographical self-portrait and a coruscating political novel. So sounds very up Maddie Healy's brand. And the last thing that I had in this box were these little game stuff to play, and I have dominoes from Cuba. They're like wooden pieces. These are really cool. I have not used this or played with this in over a decade. I have my really old set of Uno cards. I love Uno. I am a master at Uno. Everyone who's ever played against me has lost, so I just love Uno a lot. It's one of the games that I always play. And yeah, I have my Uno cards from when I was a kid. And I also have like these playing regular cards from Village du Père Noël back in my era that I was living in Montreal or Quebec, whatever, when I was growing up. So it's really cute. This is from 2008, 2008 and I was 11 years old. And this deck of cards costed $3.25. So yeah, these are my games. Now I'm gonna try to fit all of these books onto those 2 bookshelves. I think we're gonna have room for more books actually, so that's a good thing, but we'll see. I always underestimate how many books I have and how many books that I bring, so fingers crossed. There's a lot more place than I thought there would be. So the first is like the Jane Austen, the notebooks, and then the celebrity book club. Then we have all the kind of survival and forest themed books. And then at the very bottom, we have like the poetry books, the romantic books, the essays, and the books on writing poetry and poems. Then we have like the autobiography and the creativity book. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to come back and fill this up. As always, thank you so much for watching, and let me know what would you like to see next at the cottage that's related to reading and writing or other things, because I also post on the second channel. Love you guys so much. See you. Bye.